I've never been good at making life decisions based on economics. Are you ready to have kids? Like, we got to be ready, or financial, like we got to be financially ready, or we got to be at a good place. I'm willing to give up some of those exact same feelings that I had about some financial goals, or even like just kind of life goals. And I've got a daughter going off to college this year, for the first time. That's not something I've always had to like kind of step out into faith and lean into like the thing I was doing.
Beanies? Give me the paper. Nice.
I love you, Texas.
Hey guys, I'm Young, a full-time dad and a full-time professional with the goal to become the best parent possible. The Girl Dad Show is my journey interviewing fellow working parents aspiring to be both good at work and parenting. I'm going to do this by gathering and sharing unfiltered perspectives from my guests. So join me as I research parenthood one interview at a time. This episode of The Girl Dad Show is brought to you by 212. Among the many things that I do, I'm also an angel investor. The two biggest mistakes I see founders make when they come to me for investments are, one, they don't have a clean cap table, and two, they are unable to clearly articulate how my equity will dilute over future rounds, and more importantly, what my ROI will be when the company exits. It's very difficult for me to make my investment decisions without these data points. 212 solves this problem for both me and the founders. For $240 a year, 212 offers an incredibly powerful cap table management and valuation modeling platform. It is by far one of the most powerful productivity tools I've seen, and I highly recommend every founder sign up. Modeling convertible notes, safes, price rounds, pro rata, liquidation preferences, and exit events is a breeze on 212. Founders can then easily share all these complex calculations and what-if scenarios with investors and close their round much quicker. They're also giving my listeners 25% off their first year's membership costs if you use the discount code TGDS at checkout. And if you're a founder or investor, you should absolutely get on 212 as soon as possible. It's an absolute no-brainer. Dilution is real and complex. Cap table management is confusing and expensive. You need to get on 212 today. What's the point of building a successful company you don't own? Dennis, welcome to the Girl Dad Show. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, excited to be here, Young. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's jump right into it. So why don't you tell the listeners what you do for a living?
So I currently work for International Justice Mission, and in any other organization, I think you'd call me a major donor fundraiser. At International Justice Mission, they call me a director of strategic partnerships. But basically, I work with donors to help fund our mission, which I'm happy to get into what that is, but really connecting their passions to the work that we do out in the field.
Yeah, can you actually break that down a little bit? And is
Sure.
that intention? And also, when you're breaking that down, can you also share why they named it that way instead of what the donor?
That might be before my time. I can give you some ideas. So International Justice Mission is the largest anti-slavery organization in the world. So we work in 23 countries and growing around the world, primarily working within the justice system to help transform those justice systems to actually protect the people that they're meant to protect. So most of our clients, are victims of violence in countries where the justice system has failed them, whether that's at the police level or within the justice system itself, with whether it's attorneys or just legal proceedings, or even like getting convictions to stick on perpetrators of primarily slavery, forced labor, human trafficking, and sexual violence. So what I do, I don't do that side of the work. I don't work on the programmatic side. What I do is I work with folks who have a passion for seeing an end to this problem, and who also have resources to help us with an end to it. So I really, what I don't do is I don't try to convince anyone that this should be their cause or that this should be their issue that they take up. What I really do is figure out what's really important to them and to their family, and then really connect that to the work that we do in the field, and then ask them to make an investment. And so half of my job is kind of working with folks that are currently giving to the organization and really support our work. And many of them have been champions of the organization much longer than I've been there. So some of them know way more about the work than I do. And then the other half of my job is to go find new folks who want to join the fight and who really, care about this cause, but don't know what they can do about it. You know, having resources and living here, they really want to feel like more connected to the work. So I help facilitate that.
It's amazing. And I also think that it's like so interesting because you didn't grow up, or, you didn't grow your career down this track, right? So if you don't mind sharing with the listeners kind of like how you landed in a job like this, because it's very, very amazing when you announced it, and very inspiring, to be honest, because you kind of came from the opposite side of the spectrum a little bit, in my opinion.
Well, hopefully not opposite in that I was perpetrating any crimes.
Oh, sorry, not I meant more like in the sense of like being, a hustler and like entrepreneurial.
Yeah,
and,
I know what you mean. Yeah. So it's interesting. Yeah. So I'll kind of share a little bit of my background and then kind of what led me there. But yeah, so I spent the last 15 plus years, most of my adult life as an entrepreneur in one way or another. And most recently, since 2009, I started an insurance agency, which then transformed also to like an HR technology consultancy, and also built some SaaS products for the insurance industry, all kind of focused around small and medium-sized businesses. My passion in that was always kind of building sales and marketing. And so that's where I kind of would find my entrepreneurial outlets, even in an industry, frankly, that sometimes could be pretty boring, like health insurance, employee benefits. Really found my niche in figuring out kind of what was broken and helping try to solve those problems for small and medium-sized businesses, particularly for like folks just like sitting in HR, like wondering how best to help their employees. So that was kind of what drove me in that business. And there's a longer story there, of course, but in 2017, I made a conscious decision, actually probably made a decision about 2016 to sell my company. I had a couple of unsolicited offers that I kind of went down the road on, and that really sent my mind into a space, 2014, 2015, where I started really thinking like, oh, if I sold my business, what would that look like? What would I do? And by 2016, I'd made the decision, you know what, I'm gonna exit my business. I had a few ideas, but I didn't really have anything that I landed on. Kind of in the meantime, my wife and I had learned about International Justice Mission, so the organization that I work for now. We had learned about them through somebody had spoke at our church like 10 years ago or so. And when we first learned about the work of International Justice Mission, frankly, my first response was like, slavery, that's not a thing. Like, what do you mean you fight slavery around the world? But as I started to dig into it over those kind of next 10 years or so, I really started to see what a massive problem this is worldwide. And then, whether you kind of refer to it as human trafficking, we can get into some of the definitions or, any of that, but human trafficking, slavery, sexual exploitation. Once I really started to dig into it and kind of see what a massive problem was, I couldn't really find anything more offensive to me personally. So when you say like, how did you kind of transition to this work? If you kind of fast forward, this was kind of placed on my heart as like a cause of our day. And I feel like there are a lot of great causes that people support, and I don't try to diminish any of them. But for me personally, and I didn't have like a personal story, I hadn't been exploited or kind of experienced this crime. But for me, I think what it came down to was that nothing was really more offensive than commoditizing a human being. As that I'm a Christian, and I don't think you have to be a Christian to think that this is pure evil. But for me, as a Christian, my belief is that we're created in the image of God, the Imago Dei, right? That's how He created us. And so, to me, what is more offensive to a God who created us in our image than to turn us into a product and to turn us into a commodity? And I think that's really the root for me of like where my passion started coming from for this cause. And so what I first did was just started like giving some money and finding other organizations that were kind of in the fight for this. And the deeper I got into looking into this, I really found that International Justice Mission really had solutions for like the entire spectrum, everything from raising awareness about the issue to investigating the crimes to actually gathering intel to rescue those victims to
like
then
systems.
yeah, exactly, to like then to bring people to justice and then to provide aftercare and restoration to survivors. And there's a lot of amazing organizations working on like probably a singular piece of that. And where International Justice Mission focuses is primarily around that justice piece, around the justice system. But they also kind of have a solution for the entire trajectory of victims and for bringing perpetrators to justice, which is really where we see like the end of this. Hopefully, is when governments kind of own that protection of their citizens. So when I started kind of thinking about what was next after selling my company, I always kind of thought like, oh, someday I'd love to work for an organization like International Justice Mission. Maybe that's something I do in retirement. And you know what? The only thing I think I could do is probably raise money or do something like on the marketing side. And so when I sold my business, I just started talking to International Justice Mission. It wasn't a right fit. The timing wasn't right kind of for either of us. So I went and started another business. I started a business basically helping my ex-competitors in the employee benefits and HR space sell more products, whether it was sell more employee benefit packages or HR consulting, and did that for a couple of years. And then from there, really started to like just kind of lean into that push for more meaning. I kept thinking to myself, did I sell my business so that I could show other people how to do my old business? It was great work. It was really fulfilling, and I've got a lot of amazing relationships out of it. But in the end, I was still just feeling like I don't think that's why I sold my company. I had just kind of accidentally started this other business, and I also kind of in the midst of that had a pretty significant medical event. We can get into that a little more deeply, but it really impacted the way that I started thinking about what the heck I was doing with my life. I think guys and women probably of a certain age come to a point where you start asking yourself, like, what do I really want to do? What's really important to me? I'm in my mid to late 40s at this point. And I was already asking some of those questions. I was watching a lot of friends around me asking these same questions. Some of them, went to pretty like bad answers to those questions, and we all know like those stories. Other ones just kind of were kind of stuck. Like, well, I guess this is just my life now. Yeah. And I kind of had this blessing of a pretty significant medical event that really led me to a place where I was down on my knees, like saying like, where are you, God? And like, what, like I'm all yours. I didn't know, like I was like kind of at the point where I didn't know what else to do. And I came through that and out of that. And in that process, I was talking to my wife and I was like, you know what, if an opportunity arises with International Justice Mission, I'm going to pursue it wholeheartedly. I'm going to lean into that and go after it. And it was probably like 6 to 8 months later that somebody that I had connected with there posted a position on LinkedIn. And I was like, all right, I got to put my money where my mouth is and take this leap. So I went for it and I reached out, and it was a good 2.5, 3 month process. But a year ago this past August, so it's been just over a year, I accepted the position with them and have been doing this ever since.
And how about your medical situation? Has that been somewhat resolved, or are you still...
That's been told. Yeah. So and I share this story. I'm not shy about the story because I think it's a tale for, so I like I said, I'm in my mid 40s, and my physician recommended an early colonoscopy for me. Just some really like basic symptoms that like I think most guys, wouldn't even necessarily talk about with their doctor. And I was feeling just really anxious. in general. So that's why I was talking to my physician. I think I was just feeling like not right in my heart, frankly, about kind of like what I was doing with my life. I was just having a lot of anxiety. And so I ended up talking to my physician, and he was like, well, one of the things, given everything, like, maybe go get an early colonoscopy. And I was like, really? Like, you think so? And he's like, yeah, sure, go for it. And lo and behold, they found a pretty significant mass, a tumor in my colon, not a polyp, but a massive tumor. So that led into having surgery to remove, it was a colon resection, removed about a foot of my colon. And there was a time frame for, it was about a month or so, where I didn't know if it was cancer or not. The size of it was, every medical professional was telling me, even along the way when they were doing like what they could with it early on, when they initially biopsied just like a piece of it and things like that, every time they were telling me, well, we haven't found cancer yet, but at its size, it's probably cancer. Like it's going to be cancer.
Likelihood. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was really in a state of mind where I was like, is this it? Like, is this the thing? And that's what really brought me to my knees, was like, oh my gosh. And the not knowing, like, I really just didn't know. And when
coupled with the fact that you just sold your business, which has been like kind of your driving brand, right? Your identity for, decades. This is just like a perfect storm of all these different things that are just going to like kind of stir in the pot for you.
That's exactly right. I mean, I hindsight is 2020. I couldn't see it all clearly at all when I was in the midst of it. I was just like, what is happening? And had the surgery and got the call from my doctor about a week after the surgery saying, we biopsied every bit of it, chopped it up into a million pieces, and there's no cancer in it. It was on its way. It was on its way, but it's not there. And so, I don't tell this story as like, I'm a cancer survivor or anything like that. I'm a guy who went through some shit and came through the other side.
And found yourself to a certain degree.
And
second tour of duty here.
Yeah, exactly. And I know there's all kinds of stories. I don't claim to, like, this is the craziest story that happened to anybody or anything like that. But it's just, for me, it really like repositioned kind of my heart and my mind to think about what am I really doing? And I want to be clear about something too, because as I've kind of thought about this and told this kind of journey, I don't think, for me, it's not like, oh, now I'm doing the good work, or like finally I'm making an impact or anything like that. I was doing that. You're doing that. I mean, we're all doing that in our lives every day. Like, we can make an impact wherever we are. It's not like, oh, you say like, you made this, this big pivot or whatever. For me, I kept asking, like, how can I get involved in this work? How can I go deeper? And I felt like the answer back to me was like, just go do it. Like, when I said put my money where my mouth is, like, that's really how it felt. Like, it was more of a challenge to me, like, just go do it wherever you are. And if that's what you say you want to go do, like, if you want to go help a organization like IJM or any of the other great organizations working on the issue that you claim to care about, it's right there for you. Just go do it. And I felt like that was really the answer I kind of kept getting back all along. And I was the one being like, well, yeah, but it needs to be a job, or it needs to, like, somebody needs to tell me how to do it, or whatever. Even with like my entrepreneurial mindset and my jump in attitude. So for me, even like taking this, I guess I just like, I'm coming to some clarity that, it's not like this organization or even this work that like provides me with impact. It's really finding like what it is that you say you want to do, and then actually going and leaning into what you say you want to do. Like, are you actually like living out like the values that you've like announced, whether internally or to your family or to your friends, and said like, this is the thing I care about? Like, okay, then go do that thing. And I feel like that's the opportunity that I've been given here in this role for this time period. As an entrepreneur, I never say like never. I never say like, this is it. This is all I'm doing for the rest of my life. I'm not good at that. So I'm like, this is where I am for right now. And I want to lean into it wholeheartedly.
Yeah. I mean, I know we got introduced by Jason, and that's kind of how we met. And I met you when you were navigating a very successful business, and we were leveraging you for your expertise and advice. And recently, when you made the switch, Jason and I had really good conversations about it, about how amazing that was, and what would we do if we were able to, sell a business, or, be able to have that ability to kind of reset and restructure, your life or what you did. And it was really, really a fun conversation. And it's kind of funny that you sparked that in us, because we had that conversation. It's almost like the lottery question, where, you like ask those when like icebreakers, if you won the lottery, what would you do? But it's like, yeah, if you had this kind of like success point that we all look for as entrepreneurs, right? Which is acquisition or some sort of exit strategy. What do you do? And to watch you jump into this role and kind of follow your heart and passion and find yourself in that way was just a really great conversation starter. And I honestly haven't stopped thinking about it since, right? And I still kind of to this day, like still trying, I don't know what I would do, to be honest with you. And I feel a little bit bad because I'm not entirely sure I would join a cause or a nonprofit, but I definitely know that like it is something that is part of what I want to be. And I want to be a part of, society in a very meaningful way. But it's just an interesting choice that you made. And it's very inspiring. It's very, very inspiring.
Thanks for saying that. I appreciate that. And I wouldn't tell anybody like, oh, like if you're looking for meaning, go join a nonprofit. Like you really got to figure out where your meaning is in what you're doing. And that's something that I wish I had understood better, even when I was doing what I was doing. When I had a successful insurance agency, and then even this B2B marketing agency, I wish I had a little more self-awareness that the thing that I was looking for was actually like right in front of me and available to me, and I don't wish that, like, so I wish, I hadn't have made this jump or whatever. I just wish I had like had it's like a bit of maturity and hindsight that I think I've developed more recently than what I had, like, even the separation of like the work you do versus like impact, like as if those two things are separate, as if like,
Can I ask a very personal question?
Yeah.
Because I think the biggest draw for me making the comment about like not sure what I would do if that came to be is because there's a certain sense of like financial needs that I should say financial wants. I definitely can surpass my needs. I have certain financial wants that limit me from wanting to make that decision, if that makes any sense. And so the more personal and direct question I have for you is, do you feel that because you had that, good exit, that you were able to make a decision that was more focused versus diversified?
That's a really fair question. And I wish the answer was enthusiastically yes. No, I mean, so when I sold my, and I won't be as transparent to talk about like, actual figures, but I will be as transparent to tell you this, that is to give you some idea. Like when I sold my company, when my wife and I talked about it, I was like, you know what, I'm going to take 2 years off. I'm going to figure out what to do next. That was about kind of the runway that I would have maybe set up for myself. And that wouldn't have depleted everything, but I couldn't retire. I couldn't say I can do whatever I want now. And that wasn't the purpose of selling my business either. I knew that. I actually knew that if I had stuck with my business, I could have gotten to that point. If I had stayed with it, or if I had joined, a couple of other opportunities that I probably had, I kind of saw those as options. For me, it really took some work for me to say, all right, I'm willing to give up some of those exact same feelings that I had about some financial goals, or even like just kind of life goals. And I've got a daughter going off to college this year, for the first time. And like the time, like I've never been good at making life decisions based on economics. That's beautiful. And for better or worse, that's not something I've always had to like kind of step out into faith and lean into like the thing I was doing.
I'm going to slice that as our intro video clip. That was beautiful. That's a really great statement. Let's actually switch gears and talk about your kids. Do you mind sharing with the listeners how many kids you have and who they are and how old they are?
Yeah, sure. I've got three kids. So my oldest is 18. She's headed off to college this fall. Our middle child, she is 15, and she's field hockey player, loves hanging out with her friends, very typical 15-year-old kind of stuff. And then our youngest is a boy, and he is 12, and he is just a like flip and trampoline monster. Like he's
Nice.
really into gymnastics, but the version of gymnastics where like he can just work really hard on learning a new flip or a new trick or something, and then just get really good at that thing. He's not looking to join a team, or doesn't care about like competition. He just like loves doing it for himself and competing against himself in that. So
It's awesome.
yeah.
And what do your kids think about you switching your career like this?
Yeah, because my kids have seen kind of the way that I constantly as an entrepreneur was like onto something new. Even in in a business that I had for years, I was always kind of trying new things in it and getting excited about something new. So from that part of it, kind of the switching or the career pivot, I don't think was as big of a deal to them. When my wife and I would sit down and talk about like the financial implications of this career change and the potential financial implications, I think some of it is kind of like, well, why are you doing that? And so that it kind of opened up an opportunity to kind of share, like, well, here's why I'm doing this. Like, let me tell you about these kids in
Oh,
in
wow.
another country that and so getting to share some of that with them. They've never been unsupportive. They're and to be frank, like their life hasn't changed dramatically. I mean, we've always kind of tried to kind of maintain kind of a healthy sense of what's possible, like financially and traveling and all of those things. And our family's always put a ton of a lot of our resources like that we use for our family, we put it on like experiences and travel. And guess what? I took this job during COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? We couldn't do anyway.
That's
So
right.
so our life changed more dramatically from that, because that was one of the things we were doing. Like our kids have been to Europe multiple times for long stretches. In my previous jobs, I always made sure that I could do it from anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't good at taking vacation per se, but I was really good at working while traveling.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife I always had that kind of deal. And so like with the kids, that's what, if anything, that's what they saw. We're not a big stuff fam. We have nice things. We don't live in an impoverished life by any stretch. But for our kids, it was always more about experiences, and unfortunately, COVID-19 kind of took care of that for us. So they didn't see like that big of
much change. Yeah.
much of a change in jumping into this work, and they get why dad wants to go do this.
It's awesome. Yeah. And they also sound like they're old enough to actually be able to share some of the reasoning, but also even some of the work that you do and give them some context. That's got to be a wild conversation to have with your kids. Just being able to like expose them to just how bad the world can be, quite frankly, right?
Yeah. And it is something, for they're at different ages and they have different kind of mindsets and different, they all engage kind of in their own way. So it's not something, I'm not like, hey, I'm in this, so you guys need to be in this too. This has to be your cause. But I want them to be aware of it and finding those opportunities without kind of pushing it on them. Like, here's dad's thing. You guys need to care about this, to really just like find opportunities to kind of open them up to it so that they can kind of see like, oh yeah, this is a real thing. Cause it's hidden from us over here, right? I mean, we talk about human trafficking and it's a problem in the United States, but it's a very hidden problem even here. And then when it's, thousands of miles away, it is hard to actually connect, even for me, to really like feel super connected to the work sometimes.
Yeah. And then also coming from just the changes that you've made in your career trajectory and kind of the focus of it, I'm sure that you have also adapted a lot of the other aspects of your life. So if I may, how do you qualify success as a parent? And has it changed since you've taken on this new job?
So as far as success as a parent, oh man, like, asking somebody to, define success without like either sounding self-deprecating, like, I suck at this, or showing you what an awesome dad I am because I'm on the girl dad show. So I gotta be inspirational.
That's right.
I feel like, it's like walking that balance. But I'll just tell you, like, when I think about what success has meant for me, I mean, I mentioned how I set up my business so that I could work from anywhere. That was all driven by like wanting to just be around with my kids. Right after my wife and I got married, I got to we went and visited some friends of hers, and some friends of her parents, I should say. So they were the next generation, right? And they had I think they had like 3 or 4 kids who were growing, like were our age. And I remember sitting at breakfast with the dad, and we didn't have kids, and kids weren't really even on our radar yet. We were newly married. And I remember one of the things he said was that he made some career choices like early in his kid's life, so that he could be around when they were around. Not to like go do like necessarily like we're gonna go do this thing together, we're gonna do this project together, whatever. His whole thing was I want to be available when they're available. When they get home from practice, I want to be hanging out at the table, so that and finding those like moments of connection. And that always stuck with me, probably because I was already kind of wired that I didn't want to work like a 40-hour a week 9-to-5 job in an office. I never really understood that anyway, but really, like, so when I think about, like, when I look back now, my daughter's 18, so been a dad for 18 years. When I kind of look back at like what I think was successful about that, and what I tried to do, when I think I accomplished, was being around, like just having lots of time. And we talk about quality over quantity, but I mean, I think quantity is like a thing, and I don't think it's sadly, I don't think it is available to everybody. I don't think it's like, oh, you just need to spend more time with your kids. I know that's not an easy task, and so I'm not here to say like this is what you should do. But for me, that became like the thing. Like, am I around? Do my kids just consider me like part of the furniture sometimes? Yeah. Like, that's just always kind of around.
The level of like being taken for granted is like success, a factor of that.
Exactly.
That's amazing. The baseline is super high then.
Yes, exactly. So I think, to me, that like you just hit the nail on the head. Like, being taken for granted is the measure of success. Like, for me, that is what it has become. Now, do I have to reach to like find those other ways to like really make a connection? Like, oh, get interested in what they're interested in, like, sometimes that's a challenge. Sometimes it's my oldest daughter is into cool ass music, and I love cool music. Like, I always like am a music fan. That has been like an easy connection point for me.
Right.
My daughter is like super into getting her nails done, and like trying out like all different things. That is not something that has been like a clear winner for me, but like she gets so like excited about it, into it. Like, I want to hear more about it. And like, so like when I think about like those, like, first, just be around, like be available to them. But then really, like being into what they're into. Like, and I've worked hard trying to get my kids to be into what I'm into, and it does not work.
That's good to know.
Yeah,
because I have young ones, and I'm trying really hard to get them.
I see some dads who are really good at that. Like, hey, like they like this football team. Like, I'm not a big sports guy, but like, that's one of the points of connection that I see with like a lot of dads and kids, whether it's girls or boys. And I've never really had that. I didn't have that growing up either. So for me, it's like the things that I'm into, I was into music, I'm into fly fishing, I'm into like entrepreneurism and marketing and stuff like that. And, I've tried different angles with I thought, I was into tennis when my girls were born, and I was like, my girls are going to be star tennis players.
Yeah.
I was never that good, so I wasn't going to be able to train them, but it's
exactly.
maybe they'll be into that. So
yeah, it's great. And then on the inverse side, Dennis, how do you qualify success in business now?
Yeah, it's man, I'm figuring that part out when you talk about the business of like philanthropy, because for all the similarities that I thought, and do somewhat exist in between like typical sales and marketing, B2B, enterprise, it's all relational, and like the relationship is everything. That's true in like industry and business, but it's like the thing in philanthropy. Like it's there isn't much for a job like mine. Like if I can't like build a relationship with somebody where we actually have like a trusting, like open, you're getting deep into like not just their passions and what they care about, but their like finances too. Like, like, so
that's right.
So I would say now, like, I consider success, like really like opening myself up to like the real relationship and having that reciprocated, like being able to like really make that relational connection with somebody where they're actually interested in sharing their passions with me, and that I actually like really am like moved by that and can be like a resource for them to help them connect those passions back. I would say like prior to this role, a lot of it was around more like typical metrics. Like for me, success, I think what I used to say back when I had my insurance agency, what I used to say is like my business is like 50% income, 50% lifestyle. Like I would kind of like, when people would ask me kind of like what the goal of my business was or whatever, like the lifestyle was super important to me. And so like you got to have finances to have, a lifestyle of, in that context. But the ability to kind of be like go to kids' games and travel when you want to and take off, the afternoon to go do something like that's the, and just have hobbies. And so what, for me, success in business was creating margin. Like, and I don't mean profit margin. I mean like margin in my life. Like when I had margin to like meet somebody for coffee, to like deepen a relationship with somebody, like that was like, I was success. I felt like success in like I had won in business when I could meet like a buddy who was like going through something for coffee and like hang out with them, or when my buddies, are like, hey, let's, our favorite band's playing in Chicago. Can we all like converge on Chicago for a couple of days with very little notice? Like, to me, that's like success, like to be able to to like jump and do those kind of things. On the other side of that, it was, like I ran an insurance agency. It was really important that like for me, success with my clients was, for me, it was always when they said something like, I never understood this before, and it's like so simple to me now. Like I loved being the person who took complexities and distilled them down to like simpler things. The metric of like money was always there. I don't want to pretend that like, oh, the money didn't matter. It absolutely mattered. Mm-hmm. It just wasn't the only thing, because I would have had to give up all the other stuff that was really valuable to me to go after like the bigger money. And some people might be really good at like balancing that in a different way so they can like, make a ton of money, but also have this like the lifestyle they wanted. I just was never really able to do it. I like to work hard, but I also love having that margin built in to kind of be available.
It's awesome. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Dennis, I'm going to start my rapid fire questions here, if you don't mind. I like to ask the same 4 questions to every guest, and I want to start now.
Sure.
So what advice do you have for other parents and soon to be parents?
So I would say it's going to be okay for soon to be parents or brand new parents. When my daughter was born, my first daughter, I remember we lived in a tiny, tiny little house. And I remember after the parents had left, it was just my wife and I and our daughter like on our own. And I remember feeling like I didn't know what to do. I'm going to like screw this up so bad. And my wife sent me out to go get dinner. And I remember I went and picked up California Pizza Kitchen. I went and picked up CPK for my wife and I. And I remember walking out of the restaurant with the takeout bags, and I saw a dad with a little girl who's probably 6 years old, and she was alive. And that was all I needed. Like, that gave me hope. Like, seeing that, it's like, it's going to be okay. Look at this guy. I don't know this guy from anybody, and I don't know his little girl and what they go through and how they got here, but look at, she's alive, and I think I can probably do that. Like,
That's amazing.
So it's going to be okay. That's my rapid fire advice.
Great advice. Great advice. If you can go back and tell yourself one thing before having kids, what would you tell yourself?
You know, I probably would say don't wait. My wife and I didn't wait that long, but I think, like, you know, there's this idea, like, are you ready to have kids? Like, we got to be ready, or we got to be financially ready, or we got to be in a good place. Like, if you made a decision to be with somebody for the rest of your life and you want to have kids, and it's not the right choice for everybody, but if you want to have children, I don't know, like, looking back, that there's like a lot of benefit to saying, like, you should wait to have kids. Like dive in. Like, it's awesome. Like, my family's everything. And the sad thing, I guess, about like having kids earlier is that means that they, you know, take off earlier. But I'm looking forward to all of it. Like, I look forward to, like, every way along this journey. And so I try not to have, like, a whole lot of, like, oh, you know, if we had another kid, or if we had waited, we'd have, you know, longer to do this. I think, like, I'm hoping the whole thing's just going to continue to be an awesome experience.
Yeah, it's very sage advice. Yeah, I love that. I was one of those people that waited, I think, too long, and I do definitely, like, look back and go, I wish I had started sooner, because it's so fun. So fun. Yeah.
It absolutely is.
What is the most surprising thing that you've learned about yourself after you've become a parent?
Well, this shouldn't be surprising to anybody but me, but that it's not about me.
Yeah.
You know, even in the story I told about, like, you know, it's gonna be okay. Like, I was worried about, like, what I was gonna do and what I was gonna do wrong or right. That's or right. Whatever. And you know what, like, you know, maybe the cliche is it takes a village or whatever, but, like, there's a lot of people that speak into my kid's life, and a lot of, like, support around, whether, you know, hard support that you can see and touch and feel, and, you know, it's there, and soft support that, like, you never even really, like, understand that it was kind of always around. And I think, like, yeah, it's not just about you. Like, it's not about me. Like, it's about the kid and the community and a lot of factors that are out of your control too.
Awesome. And then to close us out here, what's your all-time favorite business book?
I know a lot of people, like, highlight this as their favorite business book, but it really is my all-time favorite business book is The Hard Thing About Hard Things, Ben Horowitz. Like, that to me is, like, the only business book I've read where, like, they're not trying to solve a bunch of problems, you know, they're not trying to tell you, like, what it takes to be successful. They're just really honest about, like, the struggles he went through. So yeah, that's probably been my number one since I read it years ago.
It's awesome. Kindred Spirits. That's my favorite business book as well. So
awesome.
I knew I liked you.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
Dennis, thank you so much for taking the time to be on my show and sharing so much about your life and family and business with us. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Young. This has been awesome.
Great. Awesome. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.
All right. Yep. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Girl Dad Show. We really hope you enjoyed that interview. And as always, please take a moment to review, rate, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.